your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Hawkeye Nation, to another episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast, your daily podcast covering your Iowa Hawkeyes on the Locked On Sports Network. As always, I am your host, Andrew Wade, after that interesting win over Colorado State. And, of course, we are always joined here by LeShun Daniels, who is here every single Sunday after an Iowa game, win or loss. Yesterday felt like a loss, I think, mentally to a lot of people, but we still come away with the victory, and that's ultimately what matters. So, LeShun, we're going to break that all down. But first, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Again, Sundays are always good when the Hawks win on Saturday. Even, the game didn't quite go as we may have expected, but, I can't complain about that. So, we're feeling good on this Sunday.
Absolutely. I bet on Iowa 4 different ways yesterday going into the game, which was not good for my wallet. I bet on Iowa to win the first half. I bet on Iowa to win, cover the spread. I bet on Iowa and, Colorado State to go on the over. I mean, everything was just not hitting for me yesterday. However, thankfully, after Colorado State got that touchdown, I got Iowa minus 6.5. I jumped on it, and I was able to win all my money back, thankfully. So that was at least a nice little victory for me. But Iowa beats Colorado State 24-14. And I think coming into this game, a lot of the perception was that Iowa was going to blow out Colorado State. Colorado State, to me, on paper, is kind of like a Big Ten team without Big Ten talent, right? They run a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. They run a 4-3 defense. They're going to line up and try to hit you and play some smash mouth football. I thought Iowa can do that better than any team in the country. However, Colorado State was throwing Iowa around a little bit in the trenches. So that was very interesting to see early on. But as we do with every show, we have to talk about Spencer Petras first. I think there clearly is a natural inclination to blame the quarterback when things aren't pretty, when things don't go well, when Iowa only puts up 24 points against a Colorado State team that is now 1-3 and lost to Vanderbilt and South Dakota State. Spencer Petras was not the issue. I think Spencer Petras had the best game of his career yesterday. So I wanted to turn it over to you. Did you have any concerns by what you saw from Spencer yesterday?
No, I thought he played pretty good game, to be quite honest. The stats aren't jumping, off at you. I think he was like 15-23 for like 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then they had the 1 interception, which I talked about in, my friend group chat about. First of all, I didn't really like the call at that point in time. And, receiver was covered and it wasn't a great pass, wasn't a great ball. Unfortunately, Spencer decides to make that throw. It is what it is. So I didn't have too many issues about the way he played. I liked the way how he tried to stretch the field a little bit more yesterday, which definitely showed some positives because he was pretty accurate, I felt like, down the field. So I think Spencer's playing well, and I think that he's getting better every single week. So I don't think, a lot of the blame, if really any of the blame, should, really fall on Spencer in the way that they played yesterday.
Completely agree. You mentioned the play call, kind of a little bubble screen action there that Spencer throws the ball, play action screen. Again, interesting play call they're down in the red zone area. The cornerback, I thought, made a phenomenal play on it as well. It was just a collection of everything going poorly on that play. What would you have rather seen from a play call perspective in that situation?
Anything else, honestly, besides the screen. I like screens, whether they are bubbles, wide receiver screens, halfback screens, and they work well at certain points, I feel like, in the game. But I feel like at that point, right, our just traditional offense was doing, a good job moving the ball, getting that ball down the field a little bit. So, and then know that we hit a couple big shots, right? And then obviously Colorado State did a great job on the run game. So I'm always fine for running the football, even if, we're not having, success with it. But anything else besides, I think a wide receiver screen, especially the the way that cornerback kind of bounced back from being he was beat like maybe 4 plays later, right?
Yep.
And then I think like to like the following like 2 out of 3 plays after that, he was the one making a play, on it. So I think they try to take advantage of him, being a little bit more aggressive, which I do understand. But honestly, probably anything else, whether they got into a little traditional play action, maybe you did a rollout or something, or just try to hammer it in there at least because try to get some positive momentum going. And then from Spencer's side, I mean, hey, just kind of just throw that ball in the dirt, right? I mean, you see that guy is kind of just blanketed, right? Don't make a bad play worse. Don't try to force it in there. Right? You can just throw it on the dirt and then come back and live to play another down. So
absolutely. I mean, when you look at the play sequence leading up to that play, right? So Spencer Petras has a beautiful throw to Keegan Johnson, 49-yard gain. Tyler Goodson stuff for -5 yards. That defensive line on Colorado State was doing a phenomenal job all day. Spencer then gets a ball out to Sam Laporta for 4 yards, gets another ball to Sam Laporta, and there's a penalty. And then, as you said, the guy who was covering Keegan Johnson makes the interception. 1st and 10 at the 14. You have 1 minute and 47 seconds left. Yes, hindsight is always 20/20, but you're right. That's a 14-point swing. We went from possibly being up, 10-7, 14-7 to being down 14-7 going into the half. However, I felt like our halftime adjustments, I mean, Iowa came out and they were playing pretty well offensively. I really liked what I saw. We saw a few more end arounds. We saw them take some more shots. You mentioned Spencer Petras. The stats don't jump out at you of 15 completions on 23 attempts, but 4 throws over 20 yards. We talked about that on last week's show. We wanted to see explosive plays, and y'all, we finally got it. And I got to be honest, I'm a big fan of Nate Stanley, but those are a lot of throws that Nate Stanley wasn't. I mean, it was very hit or miss when Nate Stanley was going to make that throw. And Spencer has been money on those deep throws as of late. So very impressed from that angle. I want to talk about the pass blocking because they graded out so poorly. And every time Spencer Petras got sacked, I think there was 3 sacks in the game. It felt like it wasn't just a coverage sack. It was a communication issue. I mean, let's talk about the Tyler Goodson sack because the blitzer comes through the A gap, untouched, right at Spencer. Tyler's on the left side, and I couldn't tell if he didn't see him. Should Tyler have been on the right side of Spencer? I mean, can you maybe walk us through that? Because that was bizarre, man.
Yeah. So, depending upon the protection, usually the back is on either side of the quarterback, but typically it doesn't matter, especially in our offense. Running backs have quite a pretty decent responsibility when it comes to blitz pickup in the pass game. So my guess is that Tyler just didn't see him, which can happen sometimes, especially like you can kind of get lazy in reading your keys and making sure that the blitz is being taken care of, because the way that it was looking, like the guy, like it's like he looked like he was like staring right at him, but the blitzer just comes right through the middle, right through the A gap, and he's just kind of like standing there, almost like watching him like he was like frozen. So I'm not sure like if he didn't see it, if he didn't, if the quarterback mispointed the man he's supposed to be blocking, or mispointing who the key that the lineman is supposed to be blocking. I have no idea what happened. I think it was obviously some type of miscommunication, or it was just a mental error by Tyler, which we don't see too often. So that's definitely something that will be corrected today in film. I'm sure, he'll hear it definitely from the coaches, like we can't have this, so on and so forth. But yeah, yesterday in the past, as far as our pass blocking and just blocking in general, I just didn't think was really up to the Iowa standard at all. And I think they all know that. So
yeah, I completely agree. I mean, even Tyler Linderbaum had an error, and Tyler Linderbaum is our most consistent player. I mean, he's the best player on this roster. I mean, he's a guy who could be a first-round pick, the best center since your brother James, right? I mean, this guy is phenomenal, and he even had what I would consider look like a communication error where he didn't I don't. We'll talk about that in a second. I'll get to it here in a second. I do want to tell everyone though about Prize Picks. College football fanatics, have you heard about Prize Picks? Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. I love this, and I know that you will too. Prize Picks is a leader in college sport daily fantasy. They offer more college football props than anyone in the world, and they offer all the star players of the Power Five, as well as mid-major players you might not have even heard of. Prize Picks offers any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. All of your users that deposit and use the promo code LOCKEDON, that's LOCKEDON, will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. That's right, free money just by going to Prize Picks using the promo code LOCKEDON. Again, pick whatever players you want, mix and match the sports, football, basketball, college ball, college basketball. You can do it all at Prize Picks. So use their award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made within 60 seconds. It's so easy. Prize Picks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. So again, don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON. Or go to your App Store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. All right, LeShun. So before the break, we were talking about pass blocking and how, in general, blocking just didn't seem that good for Iowa, and they graded out so horrendously bad. And I'm going to talk about that on tomorrow's show. Tyler Linderbaum even had a miscommunication where the guy he was literally lining up right over top of him, Tyler just goes to the right and then realizes the guy's coming right past him and tries getting a hand on him. Before you know it, Spencer is down. Spencer is not a guy that we can allow blockers to go untouched at because, let's be honest, the dude's not very athletic. He's not very fast. That's not a knock on him. It's just who Spencer is. He's a tree back there. He has a good arm, but he's kind of a tree. Tyler Linderbaum just let the guy go right by. That was just so weird to me to see. Can you maybe do you remember that play?
Yeah, so I remember the play that you're talking about, and I want to say it might have only showed the replay like one time, and I might not got like the best look at it. But like now I'm thinking about it, I don't know why he would have decided against blocking that man. Again, they were probably doing something. Again, I'm not in their meeting rooms, throughout the week. I'm not figuring out, how they are blocking certain looks and different things. And I'm sure that Tyler must have thought, again, it was a different look than what initially happened, or maybe just a brain fart or whatever. And then obviously the play starts, and it's already too late to try to react to it. So there was just something that was kind of going on that was just miscommunication kind of all across the board. And I'm not sure like how Colorado State, does on defense side when it comes to blitzes. I mean, some teams are very complex with blitzes, and some teams, are a lot more basic. So I'm not sure what they saw on film, on tape, at the weeks leading up to yesterday. But yeah, it was a weird game for us, I feel like, in the communication side on pass blocking, because I just felt like it just wasn't up to our standard at all. And again, I think the players and the staff know that they're gonna have to be better in communication, and they're gonna have to be better on their own one-on-ones, right? I mean, Big Ten play is really as obviously going to start back up for us, next week. And it's going to be very important to make sure that those things are hammered out, right? That we have the right communications going on, that Spencer's doing a great job of marking who the Mike linebacker is and all these different things to make sure he can keep clean so the offense can keep moving, because, sacks and negative yardage plays will kill drives.
Absolutely. I mean, I gotta give credit to Colorado State, right? They're deep. They had a good defensive game plan, and I thought offensively, the things that we wanted to see improve did improve to a degree, right? We saw the explosive plays. We saw Spencer throw the ball really well. The pass blocking, the run blocking, those are staples of Iowa's offense that we expect to get better. They are still rotating a bunch of guys around that offensive line. We have a true freshman starting on the interior. We have a redshirt freshman starting on the tackle spot. I mean, a lot of these guys are young guys. We're still getting that experience. And Colorado State's defensive line is one of the better defensive lines in the nation. So definitely something interesting there. Overall, just again, like you said, a very weird game. Beating Kent State, looking back at them, like, not too bad. Colorado State, I'm like, what the heck just happened here? Even on the defensive side of the football, I felt like Phil Parker, do I dare say, got out-coached in the first half. And I don't like saying that because I love Phil Parker. I think what he does with this defense, as you talked about, having a very simplistic defense that is incredibly effective. I thought Phil Parker's defense struggled a little bit in the first half. Granted, I think it's worth calling out that Colorado State was getting the ball like the 20-yard line based off of a Tory Taylor shank, which it was bound to happen at some time, right? We were bound to see the great punter from down under shank a ball, and wow, that was a bad time to do it. And then the interception that they took all the way down. I mean, these were tough plays for the defense to be put into. But my question to you, and that's a long-winded way of asking one question. Todd Sensio runs in there's a passing play, no one's open. He just runs it in 10 yards untouched. He's a scrambling quarterback. He's an athletic quarterback. Why are we not spying the quarterback on that play? Did that seem weird to you as well? I mean, the middle of the defense is wide open there.
Yeah. So, sometimes we have spies, sometimes, you just don't, right? Sometimes, they just have a better play call, right? I mean, it looked like that they are obviously in some type of man coverage, especially being that close to the goal line. So, a lot of backs were turned. You're kind of seeing, what's happening with the quarterback. And then, defensively, I know that on the defensive line side that, we had a defensive end up the field, right? And then when you have a defensive end up the field and then you have, one of your interior guys kind of walled off, I mean, it makes it very easy for the quarterback to be able to get in there and run. So, thinking back, I don't know if, putting spies is something that they commonly do. I mean, because I know a lot of times that they're in zone coverage, so there's always eyes on the quarterback anyway. So I just think that was one of those cases where the other offense coordinator just had the right play call up, and then Coach Parker, just got caught in an unfortunate call with his defense because obviously a lot of backs returned, have eyes back on the quarterback, so the quarterback can, if no one's open, especially with an athletic guy like that, he can easily, run and scamper for some big runs, which we saw happen quite a bit, especially in that first half. So I know that they ended up making adjustments in the second half because they held them to 0 points the second half. So the first half I think was definitely one of the weirder halves I think we've had in a while, and it just felt like the game plan that they had in place just wasn't it, right? So they had to go in and make a lot of adjustments at halftime, and obviously they came out a lot stronger for the second half.
Absolutely. And like I said, Iowa wins 24-14. That's what ultimately matters here when we're looking at it. It doesn't matter how you get the win, you get the win. And you could tell, for better or for worse, Kirk is not going to be a guy who's going to ram it down your throat and put as many points on the board as possible. The last couple of drives, you could tell Iowa was not trying to score. So let's just get out of this game. Let's get out of this game healthy. Let's move on to Big Ten football, which is on Friday night. Iowa gets a Maryland team that has had a pretty good start to the season. We get a Maryland team on Friday night in Maryland, so that's going to be interesting. Let's talk about some of the good things that happened overall. Offense, defense. What are some good things you noticed on offense?
What I did love was, obviously we already kind of touched on it, was the explosive plays. We have, that long touchdown to Keegan Johnson, and then a few plays before that. Tyler rips off a nice, I think almost 30-yard run. Mm-hmm. And then, on the drive when we threw the interception, we had, again, another big play to Keegan Johnson as well. And then there was a couple other throws, where he threw to Nico Reganey, who makes amazing adjustment.
Amazing catch.
Yeah. And it's just an incredible catch, which was, fantastic, right? So seeing those type of plays are really encouraging, moving ahead here, because explosive plays can help you win football games, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest, goals as an offense, besides, scoring points, right? To create those explosive plays, and, seeing that and seeing us do that was very encouraging, right? And then, also I like the creativity that Brian brought when, we had the interception or not interception, I think it was a fumble, right?
Yep, the fumble.
Yep. In Colorado State's own territory. And, you come back with, a reverse to, again, create, and
the mini Statue of Liberty.
Nice little Statue of Liberty, for a touchdown, I like that. So I think, there's a lot of good things that happened in the game, the explosive plays, and then I liked the creativity. I think that the offensive staff ended up bringing back for that second half of football. So those are a lot of good, encouraging things that I saw.
Couldn't agree more. I think a lot of people get upset about Brian Ferentz's play calling, but they don't understand what all goes into his play calling. And then you see stuff like that. I mean, Brian has incorporated some new principles to this Iowa offense that were never even thought imaginable. Heck, even back when you're playing only, 5-6 years ago, right? Those are things that Iowa just wasn't doing. And I think there are times of just absolute brilliance where he just gets the defense caught completely off guard. That Statue of Liberty play to Tyrone was just one of those examples of that. And I thought for what I thought was a pretty well called offensive game plan to only put 24 points on the board is just bizarre to me. I just don't know how to describe. I mean, I thought we were moving the ball pretty well outside. I mean, passing the ball pretty well. They had some good end around action. Arlen Bruce got in the game. We have a true freshman just burning guys on the perimeter. I mean, if you'd have told me that Iowa would have had 4 passing plays over 20 yards, including 2 over 40, I would have been like, wow, we destroyed Colorado State. And then we're here talking about a 10-point win. So very interesting stuff. We're going to talk about the defense and what we saw that was good on the defensive side of the ball here in a second. I do want to tell you all about SweatBlock, because SweatBlock has been revolutionary for my life. I used to pick out shirts based off the color to make sure I wasn't sweating through it, or I'd wear hoodies even when it was 80 degrees to make sure you weren't going to see the sweat from my t-shirt, because it was going to happen regardless. But now I have SweatBlock antiperspirant wipes, and holy crap, it is truly amazing. SweatBlock is stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You simply apply it at night before bedtime, go to bed, the next morning you wake up, wash, and go about your day without worrying about sweat. Guaranteed. I know this sounds too good to be true, but I promise you it is literally amazing. I've been using them. I literally only have to use SweatBlock once or twice a week, and it keeps me dry the entire time. No more pitting out, no more picking my shirts based on which one will hide sweat better. No more presentations where I got to keep my arms down because probably sweat under there. I have SweatBlock antiperspirant wipes, and they are literally fantastic. So if you or someone you love is dealing with this, just like I am, you have to check out SweatBlock. Get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON, or at Amazon and CVS. And also, I want to tell you all about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market today. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. And this week only, there's a limited time flavor, cookie dough chunk. I've tried it. It's amazing. LeShun, I'll try to get that in the box as well that I still have to send to you. That'll be coming at some point, I promise. Getting to the post office is just a pain. But Built Bars are literally fantastic. And not only are they delicious, they're also healthy for you as well. 17 to 18 grams of protein, 130 to 180 calories, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. 9 amazing flavors, all tasty, all healthy. And they are the provider of USA Track and Field. They are the protein bar of the USA Track and Field team. So if it's good enough for them, probably good enough for us. So go to BuiltBar.com and use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your first order. Use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, so we talked about the offense, the good things we saw. I would agree with you. I really like seeing the freshmen getting involved. We've talked about that. Arlen Bruce, I want to see him get the ball in his hands in creative ways. This is a guy who in high school played quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. He's a do-it-all kind of player, an athletic little dynamite package of a 5'9" or whatever he is. And Keegan Johnson, I mean, this is a guy who's a 4-star recruit. We don't get a lot of 4-star wide receivers coming to Iowa, and he has made a name for himself to this point. His first catch is a touchdown. I want to ask you, what was your first college catch or touch from a running back perspective? Do you remember?
Let's see. My first run, I think we were playing like Missouri State or something, some like FCS school. I think it was like an outside zone play. And I think it went for like 7 or 8 yards for a first down or something like that. I think it was my first actual touch. And then I know my first touchdown came the following season when I was a sophomore on my first carry of the year when we played Northern Iowa, again, on an outside zone play, of course, right? I mean, it's only right? Either outside zone or a power play you're going to score on. So, so that was my first touchdown.
That's awesome.
Again, it was great, right? Yeah. You always remember that first touch, and you always remember that first touchdown, for sure.
Yeah, and Keegan only has to remember one now because that all came in the exact same place. That was awesome to see, nonetheless. I thought Tyler Goodson was trying to do as much as he could, given the fact that he was getting it felt like every time he touched the ball, he was getting blown up in the backfield.
Mhm.
Spin Shady was trying to get out of that stuff, but you can only spin so many times before you're going to get tackled because Colorado State's defense was swarming. Anything you noticed from a running game perspective? I felt like Tyler Goodson did as good as he possibly could, given what was happening on that defensive line.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought he played as well as, he could. There might have been some runs in there where he might have maybe tiptoed too much and maybe could have got more positive yards. But it's hard. It's hard as a running back to get back in that mode of, just hitting everything like full speed, like when you are being tackled in the backfield, quite a bit. I think Colorado State had like 7 or 8 tackle for losses yesterday or something like that. So, and I know a few of them came on run plays, right? So I thought Tyler, played well for what he was given. I just thought Colorado State's, D line was just kind of just, obviously punching us in the mouth, and their guys on the edge were doing a great job of playing support and getting in there and helping stop in the run. So, a whole bunch of credit still has to go to Colorado State and their defense again, because they came out ready to play. And I don't think, Iowa really matched that same intensity for most of the ball game. So they'll come back. I know today won't be a fun day in film whatsoever. But I thought Tyler did a great job for what he was given. And, obviously he's our guy, right? So, it doesn't really matter, what happens or anything like that, because he's going to be in there. He's the guy that we know is going to provide the most spark there at the running back spot. So yeah, I thought he played well. But overall as a whole, obviously the run game was disappointing, I think, for a lot of us, for sure.
You mentioned something, and this might seem like an ignorant question because I didn't play running back, right? But when I didn't even think about that, when a running back is getting hit so often in the backfield, is that something that happens where you kind of get happy feet almost, and you're like, you know what, I'm not trusting that the hole is there because I'm literally just getting blown up. So even when you're not getting blown up, you automatically start, kind of doing a little bit jittery. You're kind of moving around a little bit. You're not attacking with the purpose. Is that something that actually happens for a lot of running backs?
Yeah. It can happen quite a bit. Because obviously, like, as a running back, games kind of change, all the time, right? There'll be times where, holes are just there. You don't got to do anything. You just jog through. And then there's other times where, you're getting tackled, right? Like a half a second after you get the football, right? And then, I know that, Tyler kind of probably felt like, hey, like things really aren't going our way. So he's probably like thinking in his head, like, okay, there's gotta be a way for me to try to create a play. And it does happen as a running back, even though like you might like say like, yeah, I wasn't, doing that. But I think like it's a subconscious thing where you're just like, the last time we ran this play, the guy was right in my face, right? So I'm gonna try something different this time, right? Instead of just sticking with, hey, these are my keys, this is my assignment, and only time I'm supposed to deviate off that is if something were to get in my way, instead of thinking of it beforehand. So yeah, it is something that happens subconsciously. I don't know if that was the reason why that happened, but I know that it's a reason. It's something that does happen because I've experienced it myself, right? So that's just my thoughts there. And I think as time goes on and the season goes on, right, there's not every single game is going to be perfect, right? Not every hole is going to be there. And I think the coaching staff will just tell them like, hey, it's not always going to be perfect, so just try to get what you can get, right? You obviously want to score on every single play, but not every single play is going to go for a score. So just try to get positive yards if you can, and avoid avoid being tackled in the backfield. Right?
Absolutely.
So.
LeShun, I appreciate your insight there. That was awesome. I think most people listening to this probably didn't play college football or play the running back position. So bringing us inside kind of what Tyler is feeling, I think that was super amazing. I really appreciate that. Let's talk about the defense side of the ball. Any good things you wanted to call out from the defensive side of the ball?
Really just the way that, they came back and played in the second half. I think that was the biggest thing. I think early on, I felt like, Colorado State was able to make a lot of different plays, especially from the quarterback position. I mean, that guy was doing a great job as far as, extending plays with his legs and as well, completing passes, which, obviously put his team in a position to actually, win the football game. I thought that Jestin Jenkins did a great job, yesterday trying to.
What a terrible booth! Like they're just so bad.
Yeah, that was not good, and I don't think they even corrected it until like the fourth quarter. So
Ridiculous.
but yeah, I mean, I thought that he was definitely flying around all over the place. I know that there was a couple times where he put pressure on the quarterback. And I know that he was working to cover their star tight end, Trey McBride, who's obviously a really good player who's going to be playing, on Sundays,
He's
most
like
likely.
260 pounds.
Yeah. So he I think he always stands out. And then Jack Campbell, who probably felt like he had like 100 tackles yesterday, was literally flying all over the field. It was like every single time that someone was on the ground, he was like right there, right? And Seth Benson. I know I called out all the linebackers by name, but I feel like that they all played a really good game. I felt like they were all kind of flying all over the field and doing whatever they could to make plays. So
I think that's fair though. When you combine those tackles, Jack had 17, Seth had 10, and Jestin had 8. That's 35 tackles combined between those three linebackers. They are going to be the bread and butter of our team this year. I mean, that linebacker group is underrated and is only going to continue to get better. I mean, Jestin Jacobs, he's only had 3 real games of playing time since being on the Iowa Hawkeyes, since joining the Iowa Hawkeyes as a 4-star recruit. And he's been getting some tough matchups, man. I mean, having to go up against Trey McBride and saying, you know what, have fun with this All-American potential first-round tight end, and coming away unscathed. I thought he played pretty well. Trey got a couple catches. He was going to get a couple catches. They force-feed the ball into him. They had 11 targets. He's only had 6 catches. I mean, that was actually a pretty quiet day for Trey McBride, and a lot of that came down to Jestin Jacobs. Jack Campbell, like you said, an absolute madman. I also thought defensively, I mean, one of the keys that Iowa's had ever since being under Phil Parker is really creating and forcing turnovers. Yes, we had that fumble. That was I don't consider that a forced turnover. That was more of a right place, right time, bad communication from an offensive perspective. But it felt like Iowa had 10 opportunities to pick the ball off, and they were just a little bit behind. I mean, a lot of tipped balls. Todd Sensio, known for, he's had, I think, 9 or 10 balls batted down at the line of scrimmage coming into this game. Had a couple opportunities there. We just couldn't get our hands on it. So I know that's kind of a weird positive, but we were very, very close to picking off and taking away several footballs, and we just couldn't make it happen. And again, coming away 24-14 with the win. The second half, as you mentioned, absolutely shutting down that offense. The adjustments were made, and that offense did not move at all in that second half. You have to be happy about that, especially going into a game against Maryland. Those breaks are going to happen, right? We're going to get more of those breaks from a turnover perspective. So those are some of the good things I saw as well.
Yeah, no doubt.
So special teams wise, I quickly want to call out Charlie Jones again. I think we have some recurring segments on here. I feel like every time we talk, is Spencer good enough to be our quarterback? It's we always got to talk about pass blocking, and then we got to talk about Charlie Jones, man, because this guy is just absurd. So my question before I get into Charlie Jones is, did you ever return punts? I don't remember you returning punts or kickoffs at Iowa.
No, nah. I returned like a few punts in high school, but no, never was on that return game life. I mean, they never tried me back there, so who knows? Maybe I could have done it.
Maybe I could have been an all-star, man.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, I mean, I love the way Charlie plays back there. I mean, he's a fearless guy and basically tries to return every single ball. I'm trying to think when I was there.
Was it Matt?
Especially, I want to say he might have returned a couple. I think, and like, maybe Riley McCarron. I know returned a couple before we ended up settling on Desmond for the last 2 years, I think. But it felt like we never got any returns. I felt like it was like the ball would be punted, and then like by the time I even looked down there, he had already fair caught the ball, and then like we were just gonna get the ball there. So I love the way that Charlie is fearless back there. I mean, he's not afraid to make a mistake, because I mean, and frankly, he hasn't made too many while he's been back there for the past 2 years. And I love the way that he returns the football. He's always trying to make a play, right? He wants that return to be an offensive weapon. And I think Coach Woods is definitely doing things to help that out, as far as guys blocking and coming up with different returns and things like that. So I love Charlie Jones back there. I think he's obviously a huge weapon for us in the return game. But to come back to your original question, never tried me up on return, never practiced it or anything. I rarely even practice catching kickoff returns, which would have been fun to be on, but hey,
yeah,
it is.
Yeah, we're here now. That's funny. Yeah, so Charlie, I mean, he's such an advantage to the offense. I mean, he's an offensive weapon in his own right. When you look at 4 returns for 66 yards, 16.5 yard average per return, that's such an advantage for the offense. At some point, these punters have got to stop kicking the ball to him. But you mentioned the limited amount of mistakes as well. I mean, typically, if you get a guy like that, I'm a huge Broncos fan. And I remember, it was a couple, like 10 years ago, they had a returner they claimed from the Texans. And I can't remember his name, but he's like 5'5", electric fast, came out of LSU. And he had a, do you know what I'm talking about?
Trenton Holiday.
Yeah. Yep. The dude was electric. When he had the ball in his hands, it was either he was going to score a touchdown or he was going to fumble the football. But you appreciated the touchdowns. With Charlie, though, you just get these phenomenal returns in limited amount of mistakes. I think he had 1 fumble last year. And then this year, you can't even necessarily classify this as a mistake, but he chose to not return a ball yesterday, which was weird considering I thought he had plenty of time, but he's like, oh, this will probably bounce into the end zone. It bounces, lands at like the 7. I'm like, oh, crap. That was, but even that's a minor mistake. He probably thought the ball was going to bounce a little different, but nevertheless, Charlie Jones, we trust. Sticking on the special teams, Tory Taylor, he'll bounce back. Probably his worst day punting we've seen, but you expect that for a guy who's literally played 12 college football games in his entire career. LeShun, that pretty much I think the takeaway from this game is, wow, that was weird, but we saw some good things we want. What are you hoping to see out of Iowa versus Maryland?
So I think offensively we gotta see consistent offensive line play. I mean, I would love for the coaches to settle on a group of 5 that they feel confident in, because I feel like sometimes when I think they know that they're being rotated in, but I feel like that can sometimes throw off confidence a little bit, within those offensive line groups. So I want to see consistent offensive line play, and helping keep the pocket clean, because as you mentioned, Spencer's not a mobile guy, so I want to see that shirt up. I want to see less MEs. I would much rather these guys just get flat out just beat on pass blocking assignments, instead of having those mental errors, for sure, because mental errors are easily correctable. So that'll tell me like a lot, like, hey, they were able to correct everything and they're able to move on. So that's one of the most important things for me and myself. And then defensively, I mean, they've been doing such a great job. But I do want them to continue the play that they've been able to do and actually capitalize on some of those turnover opportunities. Because again, turnovers help you win football games. When the ball's in the air, right, that's got to be our ball, right? So I want to see us capitalize a lot more on that, as far as defensive side of the ball goes. And then special teams just keep doing what they're doing. So
yeah, Caleb Shoot. I think we don't ever talk about Caleb Shudock, but that's because whenever he goes out there, he just kicks field goal, goes in, we're good to go. We get 3 points. I mean, he's an automatic 3. Again, Tory Taylor, just so good. I mean, I just love special teams, and it's just so fun to see us be so dominant in every aspect of special teams. Agreed, though. Offensive line, I think we need to figure out that rotation. I think they're getting close. I'm going to talk about on the show tomorrow the snap count breakdown. Really, at this point, it seems like they've kind of locked in on who their 5 guys are. It just kind of depends on how they want to continue to rotate Kyler Schott in as he continues to get healthier and healthier. This week playing 27 snaps, last week playing 19 snaps. The explosive plays, I think, is huge as well. As you mentioned, I want to see more of that. I want to see a little bit more involvement of Arlen and Keegan. I mean, when they have the ball in their hands, it's been a lot of fun. Keegan blowing past 2 guys on Saturday's game, which is awesome. Defensively, I think it's unfortunate that the defense is so good that the bar is so freaking high, right? Like what more can they do to be a dominant defense? And I'm over here upset about how the defense played. I'm like, Andrew, you're being an ignorant a jerk about this. They played pretty well, and they had such short field position. I would like to see, obviously, the defense get a better opportunity to start in the right spot of the field and not 30 yards from their own goal line. So I would like to see that, and I think that will, in turn, help the defense play better. LeShun, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. Any last words before we close it out for today?
Nah, I don't really got much. It was a blast, as always, and go Hawks.
I love, man. All right, we want to tell you, make sure to betting on your team doesn't have to be a guessing game. If you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling, get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by BetOnline.ag, wherever you get your podcast at. And if you were listening to me last week and you took my advice on betting, maybe you go back to Lee because Lee does a little better job apparently, because I went 0 for 4 on my Iowa bets this week. But we'll be better this next week coming up against Maryland. LeShun, it's pleasure as always. Have a fantastic Sunday if you're listening to this, or Monday if you're listening to this. Hawkeye Nation, and go Hawks.